When I emerged on deck for the Darkhold, the very perfection of day, bright sun, dazzling blue sky, clouds both full and white, made me shade my eyes. And though the Sea Hawk pitched and rolled gently upon the softest of seas, I felt as though my legs would give way under me. For when I was able to look about, I saw the captain had arranged a kind of courtroom. In the ship's waist, on the starboard side, he had assembled the crew in two rows, some sitting on the deck, the rest standing behind the front rank. Before them, atop the central cargo hatch, a chair had been placed. The captain hurried me past the crew, none of whom would look me in the eye, and instructed me to sit in the chair, saying it would serve as the prisoner's dock. Now he took his place in one of his fine cabin chairs. It had been set up high behind the quarterdeck rail, a rail that he pounded sharply with the butt of his pistol. I proclaim this court to be in session in strict accordance with the law, he said. Considering the overwhelming evidence against the accused, it needn't be held at all. But as I have told Miss Doyle, she will enjoy the benefit of my generosity. So saying how he now took up his Bible, and though he had just seated himself, rose abruptly and brought it down to the crew. It was Fisk he approached first. Place your hand upon this, he demanded. Fisk did as he was ordered, but, clearly unnerved, touched the book as one might, a hot plate. Do you, Mr. Fisk, the captain intoned, swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God? Fisk hesitated. He glanced quickly at me. Do you? Captain Jaggery pressed. Yes, Fisk replied finally in a hollow whisper. Satisfied, the captain went on to the next man, then the next, until he had sworn in the entire crew. From the solemnity that shone upon their faces, from the nervous fidgets and downcast eyes, it was clear to me that the men were mightily unsettled by the oath they had been made to take. They could not take the Bible lightly. But I was certain each of them believed, as I did, that the murder was done by Zachariah, whom they themselves had conspired to hide in the hold. It was to him they would remain steadfast, not me. They would tell the truth, but in such a way as to protect Zachariah. How could I disagree? Once Captain Jaggery had sworn in the crew, he approached me. I too laid my hand on his Bible. I too promised to tell the truth, as I knew I would not speak it completely. The swearing done by the captain, returned to his chair, and again banged his pistol on the rail. Will the accused stand? He said. I stood. Before this court, he continued, I, Andrew Jaggery, by my rightful authority as master of the Sea Hawk, charge you, Charlotte Doyle, with the unnatural murder of Samuel Hollybrass, late of Portsmouth, England, first mate on the Sea Hawk. Miss Doyle, how do you plead? Captain Jaggery, I tried to protest. How do you plead, Miss Doyle? He repeated sternly. I did not do it. Then you plead innocent. Yes, innocent. Miss Doyle, he asked. With what I have done sworn was a slight smile about his lips. Do you desire to withdraw your claim to being a member of this crew? That is to say, do you wish to hide behind your father's name, and thus avoid judgment by these men? I turned slightly so as to consider the crew. They were gazing at me intently but offered nothing to help. Though I sensed a trap in the question, I was loath to abandon my trust in the men, just when I had most needed them. Miss Doyle, do you wish to be judged by these men or not? I trust them, I said finally. Do you wish to charge someone else with the act of murder? No, I said. Let it thus be understood, Jaggery declared, that the accused insists she be judged by this court, and further charges no one else with this crime. So saying, he pulled back a log book onto his lap, and with a pen in hand, wrote down my words. Well done, he looked up. Miss Doyle, do you agree that someone murdered Mr. Hollybrass? Yes. Someone on the Sea Hawk? It has to be. Exactly. Someone on this ship. And at that moment, you are the only one accused. You have accused me. But given the opportunity, Miss Doyle, you accused no one else. It was clear this major point was with them. All I could reply was, yes. The captain made a note in his book, then shifted his attention to the crew. Is there any man here who is willing to defend this prisoner? I turned to the men who had begun to call friends. Ewing, Barlow, Fisk. Not one of them would look at me. No one? The captain asked mockingly. No one. Very well, the captain went on. Miss Doyle, you will have to defend yourself. They are frightened of you, I said. They won't speak because... Miss Doyle, he interrupted. It is not my right, my responsibility, as master of the ship, to determine who used the knife and for what reasons. Yes, but, again he cut in. Have I asked you for anything but the truth? No. And a murder was committed by someone on this ship. That is not open to question. But have you so much as hinted it was someone else? No, but, Miss Doyle, although none of these men wishes to defend you, they all have sworn to speak the truth. Can you ask them for anything more than that? Again, I said nothing. Very well. We shall begin. He leaned back in his chair, logbook still in his lap, pen in hand, pistol at the ready. We have agreed that Mr. Holybrass was murdered. Is there anyone else who believes he was killed by other than this weapon? He held up the dirk. No one spoke. The captain continued. Let us now determine its ownership, Miss Doyle. He asked, do you recognize this knife? Captain Jaggery. I left it. Miss Doyle, he said again. Do you recognize this knife? Captain Jaggery. Was this the blade that killed Mr. Holybrass? He repeated. Yes. Very well then, he said. I shall ask once more. Do you recognize this knife? Tell us about it. Zachariah gave it to me. Mr. Zachariah, he said, pretending to be surprised. Yes, and I showed it to you for a few days in the voyage. But when you showed it to me, he quickly put in, and I asked who gave it to you. What did you say? I said nothing. You told me that a certain Mr. Grummage of Liverpool gave it to you. Am I correct? Captain Jaggery. Answer the question, yes or no. Yes. Are you now saying that you lied? Yes or no? Yes, I said, appealing to the crew, but only because I didn't wish to bring harm upon Zachariah. Whatever your excuses, Miss Doyle, you admit you lied to me. Yes, I was forced to say. And you said I should keep the knife. Indeed, I told you that. And you did keep it, didn't you? Yes, I said sullenly, sensing he was getting the best of me. He turned to the crew. Did any of you see this girl with the knife in hand at any time? The men shifted uneasily. Come now, gentlemen, the captain barked. This is a court of law. All of you are required to speak the truth. You swore upon the Bible to do so. I'll ask again. Did any of you see this girl with this knife? The crew appeared to be looking every way but at the captain. Then I noticed Dillingham rub the back of his neck. The captain saw it too. Mr. Dillingham, he called out sharply. Do you have something to say? Step forward, sir. Dillingham came forward awkwardly. What have you to say? I saw her with the knife, sir. When? Shortly after we set sail. Thank you, Mr. Dillingham. I applaud your forthrighteousness. Now then, did anyone else see her with the knife, Mr. Ewing? Ewing said as much as Dillingham. When pressed, so did Foley. So did Mr. Johnson. The captain was now leaning over the rail, clearly enjoying himself. Did anyone not see her with the knife? He said dryly. No one spoke. I wish, he said, to state how unnatural it is for a girl to carry a knife. You have no reason to say unnatural, I objected. You even gave me one, did I? Yes, during the storm. Why did I? To cut away the rigging. To be sure, that was an emergency. But what reason did you have a knife when there was no emergency? To defend myself. Defend yourself? Against whom? Against what? Fearful of his traps, I was not sure what to say. Against what? He pressed. Did anyone threaten you? Any of these men? No, not them. Who them? Come, speak up. You. How so? You struck me. Miss Doyle, I do strike members of the crew. It is a common enough practice. He turned to the men. Have any of you ever known a captain who has not from time to time struck a member of the crew? Come now, speak up if you have. No one spoke. The captain turned back to me. But do they turn upon me with the knife? Is that what you are suggesting, Miss Doyle? That members of a crew have the right to assault their captain with a weapon? He has confused me again. Besides, he added, he had that knife on the first day of his voyage. Do you think I would strike you then? No, I believed you were a gentleman. So, Miss Doyle, you had the knife before you met me, did you not? Yes, I admitted. The captain smiled with obvious satisfaction. The knife, then, is clearly yours, and you were seen with it. You admit to all this. He turned to the crew. Have any of you seen a knife in her hand other than during the first few days of the voyage? Step forward if you have. It was Grimes who did so. Ah, Mr. Grimes. You have something to say. Begging your pardon, sir. I saw her. In what circumstances? I was teaching her to use a knife. Teaching her to use a knife, the captain repeated portentously. Portentously? Yes, sir. When? Before the storm. Did she learn? Yes, sir. Was she good at it? Aye, uncommon good. Mr. Grimes, I ask you, did you ever hear of another girl who desired to learn the use of a knife? Grimes hesitated. Answer. No, sir. Do you not think it's unnatural? Sir, I don't know as if agree or disagree. He bobbed his head apologetically. Agreed. Unnatural again. The captain proclaimed. Mr. Holybrass was murdered during the hurricane. Did anyone see this girl on deck during the storm? He looked at the crew. Anyone? There were a few murmurs of yes. Mr. Barlow, I think you say yes. What was Miss Doyle doing? She was with the crew, sir, doing her part just like we all was. And good work, too. Doing her part like we all was, the captain echoed in a mocking tone. Mr. Barlow, you are not young. In all your years, have you ever heard of a girl who took on the crew's work? No, sir, I never did. So then, is it not unusual? I suppose. You suppose, might you say. Unnatural? That's not fair, I cried out. Unusual and unnatural not the same. Miss Doyle, have you an objection? There's nothing unnatural in what I did, I insisted. Miss Doyle, let me then put the question to you. Have you ever heard of a girl joining a crew? I felt caught. Have you? No. So even you admit to that. Yes, but the captain turned to the crew. Is there anyone here who has ever heard of a girl doing what this Miss Doyle has done? No one spoke. So what we have is a girl who admits she owns the weapon that murdered Mr. Holybrass. A girl who lied about where she got it. A girl who was taught to use a blade and learned to use it, as Mr. Grimes would have it, uncommon well. A girl who, all agree, is unnatural in every way she acts. Gentlemen, do we not, as natural men, need to take heed? Is it not our duty, our obligation, to protect the natural order of this world? Once more he turned to me. Miss Doyle, he said, Mr. Zachariah was a friend of yours, the best of friends. What happened to him? He was flogged, I murmured, and? For the last time I appealed mutely to the crew. They were all looking directly at me now. I ask you a question, Miss Doyle. What happened to Mr. Zachariah? He died, I said softly, flogged to death. Who flogged him? You did, unmercifully. Anyone else? Mr. Holybrass. Mr. Holybrass, why was Mr. Zachariah being flogged? There was no reason. No reason. Did he not take part in a mutiny? He had every right to. A right to mutiny? Yes. You yourself, Miss Doyle, in great fear, if I remembered, informed me that a mutiny was about to occur. Mr. Zachariah was one of the participants, yet you think it's unfair to flog him. You wanted to kill him. So you were angry at me? I looked into his glinting eyes. Yes, I declared, deservedly so. And at Mr. Holybrass? After a moment I said, yes. Mr. Zachariah was a particular friend of yours, was he not, Miss Doyle? Yes. A black man. He was my friend, so he resented his being given the punishment he deserved. It was not deserved. Is murder an unnatural act, Miss Doyle? Yes. Is the way you dressed unnatural? Not for work I do. What work is that? As member of the crew. Is being a crew member not unnatural for a girl? Unusual, I insisted, not unnatural. Your hair, I could not work with it long. Work? I am one of this crew. Unnatural, he said. Unusual, said I. So we have in you, Miss Doyle, the captain pressed on, an unnatural girl, dressing in an unnatural ways, doing unnatural things, owning the very knife that killed Mr. Holybrass. And Mr. Holybrass was the man you disliked for flogging your particular black friend. You make it seem all wrong when it isn't, I cried out. He turned to the crew. Does anyone wish to make a statement on this girl's behalf? No one spoke. Miss Doyle, he said, do you wish to say anything? My father. Miss Doyle, the captain cried out. When we began, I offered you the opportunity of claiming protection of your father. You refused it then. Miserable. I can only bow my head. He turned to the crew. Does anyone wish to make a statement on this girl's behalf? No one spoke. Miss Doyle, he said, do you wish to say anything? Miserable. I could only shake my head. Very well. I must declare a verdict. He stood. As master of the Seahawk, it is my judgment that this unnatural girl, this Charlotte Doyle, is guilty of the crime of murdering Samuel Holybrass. For a final time, he turned to the crew. Is there anyone who wishes to speak against this verdict? No one spoke. Miss Doyle, he said to me, have you anything to say in your behalf? I did not do it. Miss Doyle, the facts have spoken otherwise. I wish to inform you the penalty for such a crime is to be hanged by the neck from the yardum. Within 24 hours you shall be hanged until you are dead. So saying, he brought down his pistol hard upon the rail. The trial was over.